Good Sunday morning. This is hashtag everyone talking about hashtag everything. I'm Kate Doherty with the Radical Ryan, and the Practically Perfect Penny and the lovely Laura have poofed and left us.
They're gone.
Poof.
Where did they
They're
go?
gone. They are gone.
Ridiculous.
And you know what? This is a beautiful Sunday. It is, what is this, June 29th? June 29th.
Man.
So since you are getting the Kate and Ryan show today,
That's right.
I actually have a bunch of stuff I want to talk about, Ryan.
Really?
I do.
It's not as if you don't have others.
Yeah.
You always have stuff you want to talk
Yeah,
about.
well,
But it's
and
different this time.
It is different
Okay.
this time.
All
It's
right.
so different this time. Actually, what I want to talk about is babies first.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
And I want to talk about it, but I know if the girls were here, they'd probably be giving me a hard time and say, "Oh, you're overgeneralizing." I'm like, sorry. Okay, so I'm going to work hard on the
fine.
radio
That's
show
all right.
today.
Yeah.
Not to overgeneralize, but this past year, if you're listening to the show, Downcountry started a program called Babies First.
Okay.
And what this is a commitment for any child born in the tri-state area. Let's be specific. In the tri-state area.
That's right.
That if you live here in the tri-state area, the WGM viewing area, and you have a child, 5 and under, with Down syndrome, or prenatal diagnosis to up to age 5. 5 is the cutoff. We have to cut it off somewhere. We will send you and your family to the National Down Syndrome Congress annual convention, where all the medical experts in the world, all the educational experts in the world, all the behavior experts in the world, all the technological experts in the world across the lifespan from prenatal diagnosis to senior citizenhood, all converge one time a year in different locations in the country.
Yeah.
And you can say, I've had some people ask, like, why is this so important? And, they say, oh, we have good doctors here. We have good doctors there. And I think you're right. We have amazing doctors. Actually, just so you know,
Yeah.
Dr. Sheffield, our lovely Dr. Sheffield, who is one of Downcountry's I Heal doctors, one of actually almost 10 now, I Heal doctors, is actually presenting this year at the conference.
Well, that's cool. That's
Solo,
awesome.
by the way, because in past he's presented as part of a panel, or he's presented along with Dr. Harknett from Mass General in Boston on the hypoglossal. This year he is presenting all by himself.
Solo. Okay. I respect it.
And I know that sounds crazy that I'm so excited, but we really do. The whole goal with Downcountry was to build an expert base here, to quit relying on Chicago or St. Louis or Springfield or Kansas City to somehow magically intervene into our world, because guess what? They don't.
That's right.
They do not. I'm sorry. Or they intervene, but maybe not always in a positive way.
But you want it here in the tri-states. Again, it's our neighborhood. It's our backyard.
Yes.
You want that
yeah,
here.
exactly. And that's why, we have no paid employees. We have no paid staff. But I think one of the questions that we've been getting is like, well, why does it really matter? And I think that in order to talk about why the Baby First program really matters, there's a lot of different areas, and probably I'll think about it. I mean, not think about it, but I think we're going to
Dive into it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll take a little bit, because part of it has to do with how people view disabilities as a whole. Another part of it has to do with how people view people with Down syndrome right here in our very own community.
Yeah.
And having said that, do I think that it's getting better? I do. I mean, there are amazing people like Sam and Jenny Dancer who view Down syndrome as a gift.
Yeah.
Which is, quite frankly, how I view it. But part of this also has to do with your exposure to people.
Absolutely.
To people with disabilities, to people with Down syndrome. And I'm going to I want to step back, because there's Ryan's generation, there's I'm probably, I'm your parents' age, aren't your parents? Or how old are they?
They're in their 50s.
Okay, they're in their 50s. Okay, so we
Yeah.
have Ryan's generation, he's in the 20s, so my kid's generation. We have my generation, which is 50-something. You have my parents' generation. And my dad talks about, when he was in school, and well, let me back up a little bit.
Yeah.
When Elliot was little, he did not like it. I buzzed Elliot's haircut. I mean, like I buzzed his head. Something I think that it's pretty common that you do with little boys
I did that all the way up until I think middle school.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought absolutely nothing of it. And my dad is like, I mean, he literally was like, please don't ever do that again. And he kind of like had this look on his face, like it hurt him. And I was like, well, okay, but why? You like, why this reaction? Because it didn't exactly make sense to me. I mean, it's a haircut
Yeah.
And
At that age too, like, yeah.
Anyway, he explained to me that when he was in school, like when he would walk to school as a child, at that time, people with Down syndrome were called mongoloids. And evidently, I don't know if it was a school for children with Down syndrome or if it was some kind of a care or if it was the institution, because during that decade, they would have been predominantly institutionalized. But both boys and girls, they would have a line of them that were walking to wherever they were going with their caretakers, and all their heads were shaved.
Really?
Yeah, it was just something they did
Yeah.
at that time. And so for him, and one of the beautiful things I will say with both of my parents both had very high expectations for Elliot from the moment. Like it was really cool. I'm going to get a little teary talking about that. Actually, all like I would, when you have been exposed to people with disabilities within your life, you know that more is possible for them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
If you have not had that same level of exposure, I do believe that there's lots of things that can get in the way. And I think, and I think we would be remiss if we didn't admit that, quite frankly, not everybody gets a rose-colored story who lives with a disability or is born with a disability, because to a large part, it is dependent on the expectations of people around you. And you can say, Kate, that's not true. You know, some people have debilitating medical. Yeah, I understand that there are extenuating circumstances. Hence why I said I'm not trying to overgeneralize. There is an exception to freaking every statement that you can possibly make on this subject. I do understand that. Having said that, I firmly do believe having high expectations. You shoot for the moon, even if you miss, you'll always be a star, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, when you look at that was my parents, like the shaved head, institutionalization. And when I meet people who are my age with Down syndrome and their parents tell me their stories, to a man, almost every single one of those parents were told to institutionalize their child or to leave them at the hospital and they would let them die. I mean, like, and you can say that couldn't have happened. It happened. I mean, it happened. It's true. These people lived it. And so I think about that. And then you fast forward to my generation. And I would say my generation, they weren't told to institutionalize or leave the baby alive. There's genetic testing, and very often 90% are told to terminate. I mean, like that's, and there's a 90% termination rate for children who pop positive with Down syndrome, even though we know that test can be widely inaccurate. And so when I think about the Babies First program, and I think about the importance of it, it's vitally important, because you don't know what level of exposure, of information, what their experience has been with someone with Down syndrome, if they've ever met somebody with Down syndrome. And actually, I will say kudos to your generation, Ryan, on one aspect, because this is something that I find, and actually kudos to Google.
Sure.
And you can say, what? I know my dad's sitting there going, Kate, why did you just say that? You know, flipping internet, it's the bane of my existence. And you're right. There is a lot of crap out there on the internet. Having said that, Ryan, what I discover when I meet parents of your generation is they do have an ability to do a Google search. And they do have an ability to access a much larger quantity of information, both good and bad, on different conditions.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times when I meet them, they are coming at it from a different perspective. Versus, I mean, one family, I'll never forget meeting this family. It was probably year 3 of Down Country. And I meet this sweet mom of a child, and her child was 3 at the time, because it had taken her 3 years to basically take her child out. And that's because when her child was born, her mother had said, "Call me when he's dead." So she not only, her birth story was, she'd not only had a child born with Down syndrome, she'd had a mother who could not even possibly fathom that this child was going to be part of their life and their world.
Wow.
When she told me the story,
Yeah.
I cannot fathom how, like, what that would be like to have that lack of parent support.
Yeah.
You know, versus my family was like, whatever you want, whatever you
We're
need, we'll
here.
get you there.
We're
Boom,
there.
we're going to show up.
Whatever you want.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
I mean, like, true story. I mean, we were so blessed, and our friends were like that too. I mean, sometimes on the show, I tell isolated stories of things that happened to me that I thought were bizarre, like the card, or the sympathy card, or the person asking me if I was going to have to institutionalize him when he was 6 months old, or just realizing people were scared of my son. But that goes back to that lack of exposure.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
100% it does. I mean, it's really, again, with this whole, initiative and all of that. And again, the whole mission of it all is like, it's to continue. We always use that word inclusion, bringing everybody together and kind of thing, and changing the mindset. So again, you talk about that mother from year 3 of Down Country to where it is now, and things like that. Again, everybody's story is different.
Absolutely.
Everybody's child that has Down syndrome of whatever variety is different. And I think what, with the Baby First, it's a way to be like, hey, you're not alone. Hey, there are resources that you can have at your disposal. Because here's the reality. I mean, you say it, with my generation, we are very lucky to have the internet to be able to look things up. But sometimes WebMD is not the greatest. And so it's like, gives you all the different ins and outs, right? And so you have to know where to look. And even with this, that is still a part of it. Even for your generation of like where to go, who to talk to, it's what sites, what things should I be looking at that make sense. And with Baby First, it's a way to kind of start that process in allowing you to know that you're not alone and know where to look and what are the proper resources.
Well, and also, even, whether you're struggling with your child's birth diagnosis, or whether you're celebrating your child's birth diagnosis, or whether you're caught somewhere in the middle, one of the things that we know is that we can get you to these experts and the latest and greatest in research and this. What you choose to do with that information,
it's up to you.
It is up to you.
Yep.
But lack of not having that information it is a whole nother concept. So when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about Babies First, and actually we're going to open the segment with Einstein syndrome. And I hope that everybody will listen and ponder it with us. But for now, this is Hashtag Everyone talking about Hashtag Everything. We'll be right back.
Roll.
Good Sunday morning. This is Hashtag Everyone talking about Hashtag Everything. I'm Kate Doherty with the Radical Ryan, and the Practically Perfect Penny and the lovely Laura have poofed and left us. But
Gone.
they'll be back next week.
They'll be
I'm
there.
certain.
Oh,
They will.
yeah.
Okay, so before we went on break, I said I wanted to open this segment with reading this poem as we discussed, because today's show, we're talking about this Baby First program that Down Country has begun, that we started. We announced it at Rhinestones and Rodeo. We actually have 2 Baby First and their families and grandparents who are going to Dallas, Texas with us. But when Elliot was little, I found this poem story, I don't know, snippet.
Yeah.
And it's titled Einstein syndrome.
Okay.
And I think it is vitally important. And, nobody, only God knows what the future holds for any child.
Absolutely.
Any child, period, point blank. And so the problem when it comes to Down syndrome is the preconceptions people have of that based on their experience or exposure, which many times may be limited or erroneous, because there are things that come into play, such as co-occurring diagnosis with Down syndrome and autism, or there is no one-size-fits-all Down syndrome. It's just an extra chromosome, and anything you or I may or may not have, they may or may not have. Having said that, here it is. Einstein syndrome by Marianne Koch. Imagine you've just given birth. You notice a sense of excitement in the room. Finally, the doctor comes to you with a big smile and says, I have some important news to give you. Based on our preliminary examination, we believe your baby has Einstein syndrome. The doctor goes on to tell you that children with ES typically read by age 3, and by 6 or 7 can read at a high school level. They can master many languages during their preschool years, develop phenomenal vocabularies, and complete high school by age 10 or 11, and college by 15. Furthermore, children with ES have remarkable physical skills. Many Olympians have ES, and they tend to be excellent musicians. Now, how are you going to treat this child? It is doubtful you're going to leave him in his crib for the first 2 months watching a mobile. Instead, you will keep your child in a room full of activity. You will talk to him, naming items and expecting them to understand you. You will surround him with classical music. You'll begin to read to him as much as you can and begin teaching him alphabet letters very early. This child would go everywhere with you just so you can teach him more about the world. He won't be in a playpen. You'll be giving him lots of opportunities to learn to crawl, and you will expect him to go get things for himself. You will probably hire a nanny who speaks another language and will likely enroll him in gymnastics or swimming classes. Guess what? Even if the diagnosis was wrong, by the time your child is 5 or 6, people will begin commenting on how incredibly bright he is. He will be an excellent reader, have a tremendous vocabulary, have a good ear for music, and be exceptionally coordinated, all because of the extra input that you've given him based on your expectations. Contrast this with another scenario, this one all too real. After giving birth, there is a stillness in the delivery room. The nurses seem to avoid you. Finally, maybe several hours later, the doctor tells you what is wrong. Your baby has Down syndrome. Try not to let it ruin your life. As you read more about Down syndrome, this dreary prognosis emerges. Your newborn baby is, I hate that word, can't say it.
No, I get it.
He will learn to crawl and walk late. His language skills will always be minimal, and he will never be able to express himself well. This child might not learn to read a little, but certainly not by the age that quote-unquote normal children do, and never will. Even as an adult, he will always do stupid things because he will never learn to think well. With that dreary prognosis, how are you going to treat your baby? Why bother talking to him? He won't understand you anyway. Why bother reading to him? He'll never learn. Why bother even getting him out of his crib? He isn't supposed to crawl for many months. And guess what? He doesn't learn to walk, read, talk, or think well, just like they all said. I am convinced the biggest handicap children with Down syndrome have is the low expectations of their parents and those around them. This baby may have physical problems. Maybe he doesn't hear well. Maybe he has poor muscle tone or a heart defect that leaves him weak and causes difficulty with new physical skills. This little baby needs lots of extrasensory input just to balance their physical handicaps. As a baby, my daughter Mary would have been content to lie on the floor for hours sucking her thumb. As a hot toddler, she hardly demanded any attention. With 5 other children, I had plenty to do and could have easily ignored her. But Mary needs more input, not less. I needed to make a constant effort to interact with her and involve her in what the family does. As a result of all that extensive input, by the time Mary was 3, she wasn't in least passive, but was on the go, nonstop. I have been accused by a social worker of not dealing realistically with Mary's condition, of being in, quote, denial. Yup, I'm in denial. But as long as I believe she is capable of normal function, I will be willing to give her the input she needs to get there. Now, this article was first published in the Teaching Home magazine all the way back in July, August of 1994.
Wow.
But I'm going to tell you, it is still true to this day.
Yeah.
Which is why the Babies First program is vitally important to our families here in the Tri-States.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know what kind of a diagnosis at birth the families are getting. Sometimes they get good ones. It makes my heart so happy when I hear they've gotten a good one.
Yep.
I'm still going to tell you it's a 70-30. It is a 70-30, people, of the families that I meet. When they tell me about their stories, I mean, I have had families tell me they have been scared that DCFS was going to be called on them because they didn't want to do the genetic test because they're like, they could tell their child had Down syndrome. So they're like, why do I need to do the genetic test?
Mm-hmm.
And the hospital's like, no, you have to do it. And I'm like, well, anyway,
Right,
they did it because they
right.
were like, well, we got kind of worried. You know, I have had families tell me that they were told they could give the baby. 70% of the families I talk to do not have a positive birth story. Like, they don't have a lucky one where, I mean, like in our case, I think ours, we're so lucky that we ended up in the right place and had people who instantly gave us those good, because it does. Because if you're lucky enough
Yeah.
to be presented with somebody who's like, yeah, well, there's some of this medical stuff, but,
Here's this. Yeah.
you know, anything a child with or without Down, they may or may not have this. And so it changes what your expectation level is of your child.
Well, because I think at the end of the day, too, like, again, I mean, I even think of my situation. Like, again, it's like if we approached it, and look, no one is expecting you, like the whole Einstein syndrome, like no one's expecting you to, all right, now your kid's got to be classically trained and now they have to know this. I mean, no. If we as parents were given, you know, the encouragement in the beginning, right, that if you do X, Y, and Z, like this child is going to blossom into something amazing. Because at the end of the day, Down syndrome or not, we have no idea what the future is going to hold.
Yeah, well,
we have no clue.
And some people say, well, you know, I did everything and it didn't turn out. I don't know.
I
You know what
we
I don't
don't
know.
Nobody
but
does.
I know that if you don't, I can tell you what's going to happen. I mean, like, and so when I think about that, since when we do meet these families, I don't know, first of all, what their birth story is like, what their exposure is like, what their belief systems like. I know that when I get them to this convention
Yeah.
and they see people with Down syndrome who are dating, talking, having a beer in the bar. I
Right.
mean, like, who are navigating independently in a huge hotel,
Yeah.
calling Ubers for themselves. I mean, it's not the traditional tri-state area experience.
It's encouraging.
It is encouraging because if you know it's possible, and part of the reason we use it to vet our recipients is because teachers see that then, therapists see that then, and you have to know. Doesn't mean they're going to hit it. Not every child's going to hit it.
No.
But you knowing it's possible
Yeah.
becomes important. And then also, I know we talk about this a lot on the show, but it is vitally important. Children with Down syndrome have an extra chromosome. They are medical children and adults first. And I will argue, I am an educator, I will argue with any educator out there who said, oh, well, it's an education. No, it is not. Like, no. Our parents have to know. You have to have a good relationship with the doctor. You have to know the latest medical, because there are medical issues that they may or may not have directly and significantly impact their ability to learn.
No doubt. No doubt.
It matters. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more I'm going to explain the process about how you get signed up for Babies First. We'll talk about some of our other upcoming events, and it'll be the third and final segment, and then you don't even have to listen to us anymore.
God.
How miraculous. Anyway, for now, this is Hashtag Everyone talking about hashtag everything. Good Sunday morning. This is Hashtag Everyone talking about hashtag everything. I'm Kate Doherty with the Radical Ryan. Practically Perfect Penny and lovely Laura have poofed and left us. And this is the third and final segment at today's show. And we've been talking about the Babies First program, why it really matters. But I thought about something while we were on break, Ryan, that I guess I want our listeners to know. Like, in that Einstein syndrome thing where she says, you know, a social worker accused her of being in denial, or, you know, the importance of getting people to the Babies First. So what I want our listeners to know is it really, really is important that we get our parents to this Babies First, because there are going to be people.
Yep.
If you have expectations of your child here in the Tri-States, if I tell you, I'm so glad I didn't listen.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a very strong personality. I would say that might be a slight, and maybe. And
Very.
I mean,
yeah. Maybe a little bit of an understatement.
I mean, you gotta probably have to know
That's
how
okay.
to.
That's all right.
Kind of have to know how to take me. I don't mean to be that way, but I can come across a little maybe extra
It's okay.
myself.
But we love you. It's all right.
Thank you. Not everyone does, but
That's
I'm
okay.
glad that you do. Thank you very much.
I got you.
But when I say to you, having that strong, do you realize how many people did tell me I was in denial? How many people that I wasn't being realistic of my expectations for Elliot, that I wasn't, I mean, and I think about it and I'm like, no, you know what I mean? Like, because in my heart of hearts and my mom heart, I like, no, I know he can do this. Like, I know. And weirdly, the other night, did I tell you this story?
Mm-mm.
Okay, haven't told our listeners.
There you go.
The other night, we had the opportunity to go to the State Street Theater. They had a jazz night there. And it doesn't always hit me, but every once in a while, it will really hit me how glad and grateful I am that I didn't listen to all the people who told me what he couldn't do. Because it was, when he was little, it was darn near constant. You know, I mean, they said things like he didn't read with comprehension. I mean, like, so many things. And the other night we went to this jazz thing, and he loves to dance. So he said, you know, you okay if I dance? And I said, yeah, just, you know, be appropriate. And so he went and he asked a lady to dance and took her out on the dance floor, and they got done dancing and went back. He danced all night long with a different lady that he went up to. He asked appropriately if they would dance with him. I was in awe sitting there watching him because
That's awesome.
I mean, I had literal tears in my eyes
Yeah.
because, first of all, how many 17-year-old guys do you know, 17-year-old young men, do you know they're going to just walk up to different ladies, ask them to dance,
0.0.
and then escort them back to their seats when they're done? That's not going to happen.
No.
And he was appropriate. I mean, he did it all independently. I was not there monitoring him. I mean, other than maybe getting a little teary over this.
Yeah.
But I think I'm so glad. And part of the reason that I think I was able to withstand all those people who kind of were nasty and told me I was in denial and I wasn't dealing realistically. And quite frankly, sometimes would tell me that because I was allowing Elliot to be independent, that I even had somebody tell me I was putting him in danger.
Oh.
And I'm like, how am I putting him in danger? And they're like, you expect him. I think it was over changing the laundry.
Oh.
I'm like, what happens when you put clothes in the washing machine? And they're like, I just feel that's because I've had him do it probably since he was 4.
Sure.
And he does laundry at our house. I mean, he folds our towel. That's part of his job. That's part of our household. And I mean, they just felt that I was being ridiculous, that I had these expectations. And so going to the National Down Syndrome Congress every year and seeing these adults who are working, and some are married and some are dating, and they're navigating the world independently, it provided for me a breath of fresh air because it made me feel not crazy.
Absolutely.
It made me feel not alone. And it made me come back with a renewed vigor to have high expectations for my son. Not to mention, there's so many life-changing medical pieces that we have been able to enhance Elliot's life because we had access to that information. And I want that for every child born with Down syndrome here in the Tri-States. And for me, that's why the Babies First program is so vitally important.
Well, and I even think about it too, like, you know, regardless of what your beginning part of your story was, at the end of the day, all we want for any one of our kids is independence. We want them to grow. We want them to become their own. We want them to do all of this. And so to then hone it back in, again, if you want your child to have the best shot, let's put it that way, to blossom, this is an opportunity to get you there, or help, you know what I should say, help try to get you there, because you never know what the future is going to hold. Again, we keep bringing that up, but it gives you an opportunity to sit there and go, you know what, I'm putting my best foot forward as a parent to say, here are the resources, here are the things that could help my son or daughter, or both, or whatever, that, you know, you're trying to better them for the future. And I think it's really cool what we have like put together to try and accomplish that. Because I know from my quote unquote typical children, I want nothing but the best for them. I want nothing but the best for them to thrive in whatever variation that's going to be. You know, whether that is, you know, they're going to be great at math, whether they're going to be great at science, whatever they're going to be great at, I'm going to do the best that I can as a parent to give them every resource that they possibly can to try and accomplish whatever that's going to be. And with Baby First, that's that first step for children with Down syndrome to have an opportunity to say, all right, as a parent, I'm giving them every tool in order to try and be the best version of themselves. Because at the end of the day, all we can do is try.
Well, and a lot of people, so if you go to the website, you can read a story. We have our very first Baby First is Ellis Haskins.
Love it.
And his story is up there. But people are like, so what do I need to do? How many grants do I need? What do I need to? You need to make a phone call.
That's right.
You need to call 217-617-3568. Again, how do you get somebody signed up for the Babies First? You call 217-617-3568, or you can text 217-617-3568. So you can call, you can text.
That's right.
You can email info@up@downcountry.com.
That's right.
And you know what? You say, hey, I have a 3-year-old. I have a new baby. I have a 4-year-old with a Down syndrome diagnosis. I have a 5-year-old with a Down syndrome diagnosis. I would like to sign up for the Babies First program. And then you know what I do? I give you a phone call back and I say, welcome! Say, hey, ho, yo, baby, yo. You are part of the Babies First program. It's that freaking simple. I mean, I need a date of birth.
Yeah.
I need your name and your address so that I can get, but then I can tell you right now, then we'll get you signed up for the closest convention to when we find out about you and your baby. We will get you there.
And help you try to navigate, you know, through all of it, you know, and that's the really cool thing about what this whole entire program is, you know, and so that's awesome.
Well, and people like recently they asked, the two babies, they're like, our family members, I'm like, if you have grandparents who want to come along, they're fine. Yeah, they can come along.
Absolutely.
I'm like, now they pay for their own room, but you know what I mean? Like, but yeah, they can come. We can handle the booking. We can get them all booked. They can come with you. We can do whatever it is we need to do.
Yep.
But for the Babies First, it's mom, dad, and any siblings or kids that you have, and we will get you there because we do believe it's so important.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful family experience, and I think that it will be life-changing. I can't wait to take our families this year.
No doubt. No doubt.
It is so exciting. And, you know, and the cool thing is, I didn't have this when Tony and I went the first time, but like when they go this time, they have a downcountry family of 115 people surrounding them.
Yep.
I mean, our Wednesday flight has 69 people on it.
That's awesome.
I
That's
mean,
awesome.
our Thursday flight, I don't know, it has, whatever,
Yeah.
30, 40, whoa,
Yeah.
I mean, like, you are as taken care of as I can possibly make
Which
it.
is really awesome. Really
yeah.
awesome.
Anyway, if you have any questions or if you would like to sponsor Baby's First Family,
Yeah.
please call 217-617-3568. I hope that if you're listening to the show today, you're as excited about this program as we are, because it is a tremendous blessing, and we're so excited to be able to bring it to the Tri-States. Anyway, this is the conclusion of today's show. You all go have a blessed Sunday. For now, this is #everyone talking about #everything.